Wolves have one of the most complex and well-crafted social hierarchy systems among their packs. A dominant male and female, who are usually the only ones who breed. Females and males throughout the pack are ranked more evenly, and there are much fewer conflicts over food than there are in other animal groups, i.e. lion prides, hyena clans, etc. Wolves are amazing endurance hunters, using huge numbers to massively outnumber their prey. They don't pursue to catch them as quickly as possible, they pursue to wear them down. As their prey begins to get tired, the wolves will nip at their back legs, stomach, and backside until their much larger prey simply gives up running. This is when the wolves make their kill. Wolves actually live with humans. Dogs are essentially just subspecies of gray wolves, which humans have crafted over thousands of years via selective breeding. Your pug? It's a gray wolf. Your English Mastiff? It's a gray wolf. Your German Shepherd? You guessed it, he or she's a gray wolf. Wolves don't bark as much as dogs. They can bark, but they prefer a more classic old school sound than barking. They howl, growl, and whine, but they don't bark too often. It's one of the few things that separate dogs from wolves. This is probably down to the way humans have domesticated and trained dogs. A bark is a quick, loud, and alarming sound that's quick to alert humans. We more than likely make dogs bark a lot more than wolves. Jif lived alone in a very remote mountain village, and his parents died early, being very poor. He was over 40, but he could not get married. In addition to planting a few fields, he also worked as a forest ranger, and he would go up into the mountains every 2 days to do a lap, since he grew up in the mountains. The job as a ranger wasn't all that hard. He thought the job could be done quickly, and he could earn extra income, so he liked it very much. One winter morning, Jeff was out touring the mountains early in the morning, trudging through the snow. Although the snow did not cover his knees, he walked so slowly that he had to catch his breath several times before continuing. That's when Jeff suddenly heard a few faint whines. When he stopped to listen carefully, the voice stopped abruptly. He thought it was his hallucinations from when he was a little kid. And just when he was about to move on, the voice rang out again. The sound came from a piece of grass ahead, causing Jif to be on high alert, and he walked very slowly over. A head poked out of dry, snow-covered weed, shaking violently. Its childlike voice was very weak. Jif scraped through the weeds and saw that the little wolf cub had many bite marks from other animals on its body. There was a bone on his leg that looked like it was broken. Jif watched the little wolf cub that was hurt so badly. He couldn't bear to leave it alone, so he picked it up slowly and walked down the mountain quickly. When he got home, he found some tattered clothes, put them on the ground, and put the little wolf cub on them. He quickly found medicinal herbs to stop the bleeding. After grinding, he applied it to the cub's injured area. The cub's leg bones had been exposed, so it needed to be tied up. So he went to the door to find a few wooden sticks to fix the legs of this little wolf cub. "This couldn't be a normal wolf puppy," he said, after the little wolf puppy was bandaged. It was getting late when it was time for dinner. Jif didn't think about cooking first, but instead got the little wolf cub something to eat. But he didn't know what to feed it. Jif suddenly remembered that the family dog had just given birth the other day, so he decided to try going that route. He abruptly got up, went to the kitchen to get a bowl, and headed toward the kennel. Jif told the dog he wanted to ask it for some milk. Now, he didn't care if it understood, but went straight to the milking. Then, he held the milk to the mouth of the little wolf puppy. The little wolf lowered its head to stick out its tongue, looking slowly and finishing drinking. After a while, the man thought that as long as it's willing to eat, it'll definitely survive. After that, the little wolf cub lived on the dog's milk. Jif would always hang out with the wolf cub. As time passed, the little wolf cub's injuries were almost healed. The man named it Sam, and they lived together for more than half a year. This little wolf cub had grown into a majestic wolf and would often follow Jif up the mountain. As time went on, Jif kept Sam by his side. Sam frolicked in the woods and didn't look like a wolf at all, so Jif felt it was time to let it go back to nature. The following day, Jif took Sam to the forest. He crouched down and stroked his head, talking to it, but he felt it didn't understand. He hoped Sam could understand that he was saying that it could understand his intention to send him back to nature. After all, nature was where it really belonged. Sam seemed to know it. Jif treated it differently that day. They were about to part ways eventually, so Jif put it down and turned to go down the mountain. But Sam stayed close by him and wouldn't leave until Jif got angry. Sam had never seen Jif get angry before. It may have even frightened him, so it did not dare to follow any longer and ran back to the mountain in despair. After that, Jif continued to patrol the mountain. But one day, Jif suddenly fainted on the mountain. After fainting, Jif was seen by Dan, who went up the mountain, and Dan shouted Jif's name. After a while, Jif woke up, and Dan helped him down the mountain. Dan's family was also very poor, and she dropped out of school in the 3rd grade in order to make a living. She could only make a living by relying on the family's friends and cutting firewood in the mountains. She spent almost half of her youth there. Since Dan helped Jif off of the mountain and rescued him, they had more and more interactions. Dan's zeal completely impressed Jif. Dan mustered up the courage to one day propose. Jif was delighted. He thought he would take the initiative to propose, but due to objections from Dan's family, they married 2 years later, and Jif was nearly 50 at that time. Jif and Dan had a happy life. They had a lovely daughter. Their daughter was very well behaved and sensible and would always accompany Jif up the mountain. Unfortunately, people may face all kinds of problems in their life, and no one knows when an accident will happen. Misfortune befell Jif, who was patrolling the mountain. He suddenly felt a tingling pain in his wrist, and then he passed out before he could respond. Seeing this, Dan hurriedly walked up the mountain. It took them nearly 3 hours to reach the main road, and they stopped a passing car to go to the hospital. After a systematic examination, the doctor concluded that Jif's left kidney was gradually shrinking, and his right kidney was gradually chronic. The high cost of surgery made Jif choose to give up. He left the hospital and returned home after only a few days of fluid transfusions in the hospital. After that, Jif acted like nothing had happened. And even Dan thought that the medicine prescribed by the old Chinese medicine doctor had the effect. 3 years later, Jif's condition worsened again, making Dan sad. Jif's left kidney was severely atrophied, as was his right kidney, but Jif said he felt better and less pain as long as he took a break in the forest. It was summer, and the sun was scorching the ground, which was the season of forest fires. Even though they were careful, Jif was not able to avoid disaster. A forest fire broke out, and Jif knew something was wrong when he saw a few wisps of smoke rising from the mountains not far away. The fire spread quickly. Jif didn't have time to react, and the fire spread to him with the wind. Jif ran down the hill, not paying attention to where he was going because he was trying so hard to get away. He stumbled and fell with a loud bang. A wolf appeared in front of him. The scene seemed familiar. Jif was flanked before he could think. He neither wanted to be eaten by this beast nor burned to ashes. Jif closed his eyes and thought his physical condition would not last long, so he chose to accept his fate. At the time, the wolf looked anxious and walked in front of him, grabbing his clothes and dragging him from time to time, which surprised Jif. What happened to this wolf? In front of the beast, did humans still have a chance to survive? The wolf didn't stop dragging, which made Jif feel hopeful again. He and his child quickly got up and ran down the mountain in the direction the wolf was dragging. Not long after, a tree trunk suddenly fell from above. Jif didn't have time to dodge and was pinned down by the burning tree trunk. After the wolf put out the flames on his body, there were obvious burn marks on it. It took a stick from not far away and handed it to Jif. After Jif took the stick, he pulled the trunk away from him. No time to think about it. He could only endure the pain and continue to run down the mountain. The wolf had been leading the way for Jif and was always on guard. Escorted by the wolf, Jif finally made it home safely. After the wolf sent him down the mountain, it rubbed a few times on his body. That's when Jif saw the long scar on the wolf's leg from when this little wolf was injured as a puppy. Although its legs had recovered, the scars were still there. Jif asked the wolf if it was Sam and waited for a response, but the wolf stepped forward, shook the dust on its body, let out a long whistle, and then walked towards the mountain. Jif was desperate. He didn't want to go back because the fire on the mountain was out of control and it would be dangerous. But the wolf disappeared into the fire as if not hearing it. When Jif got home, Dan was horrified to see him in a state of disarray, but most of all, she was happy he was back home safely. Jif was very thankful for the wolf that saved him, and also felt grateful because good deeds always return.